Hello guys, welcome to my next video tutorial on Java for beginners. In this video, we will discuss about class constructor. So, what is a class constructor? When you create an object of a class using new operator, then you invoke a special kind of method is called a class constructor. Means a constructor is a special method that is called when you use the new operator. For example, we have a class called rectangle. So here we are creating an object of rectangle class. Then you can see here rectangle R1 is new rectangle type, and if you see on the right hand side of this expression, there is a rectangle word which is same as our class name rectangle, but there is a parenthesis indicating that this is like a method and this is what is known as a constructor in Java. So constructor has following characteristics. Constructor name and class name should be same. A constructor may or may not have parameters. Parameters are variables to receive data from outside into the constructor. If a constructor does not have any parameters, it is called default constructor. If a constructor has one or more than one parameter, then it is called parameterized constructor. Constructor does not return any value, means void is not required in constructor. A constructor is automatically called and executed at a time of creating an object. While creating an object, if nothing is passed to the object, the default constructor is called and executed. If some values are passed to the object, then the parameterized constructor will called and executed. Okay, constructor is called and executed only once per object. Means when we create an object, the constructor is called. If we create a second object again, then the constructor will call again second time. If you don't define a constructor inside your class, Java is going to create a default constructor that will assign default values for your variables. This is very important point. And if you define your constructor, then Java does not provide a default constructor. Okay, so these are the main characteristics of constructor. Now let's start programming to understand constructor in a better way. First of all, I'll create a new class. So I will go to my package, then I'll right click, then go to new, and I will create a class and I will give name rectangle to my class. Okay. So in this rectangle class, I am going to calculate the area of rectangle using two different variables, length and width. So I am going to declare two variables now, integer length and integer width. Then I will declare a one method which will calculate the area of rectangle. So here I will return integer value and I will name it as a area. And this method will not have any parameters. Okay. So this method is just going to return a area of rectangle using length and width. After this, now I am going to initialize an instance of our rectangle class in my main class, in my first class. So I will write here rectangle and I will name rectangle instance as R1, which is equal to new rectangle, right? And this rectangle with the round brackets is called the constructor of your rectangle class. And the most basic property of the constructor is that we already discussed. If you don't define a constructor, Java will create a default constructor for you whenever you create an object. Okay, so till now we haven't created any constructor explicitly anywhere in our rectangle class. But this is a default constructor, means Java will consider this is a default constructor because we have not defined any constructor till now. If you want to define a constructor, for that what you have to do? You have to define a constructor, and the constructor name is same as class name that I already told you. So for defining a constructor here, you can just write rectangle with brackets, and this becomes now your default constructor because you defined constructor. Okay, so right now I am not going to pass any value in this constructor, but it can take some values or parameters. So if you want to provide some parameters, you need to provide here. And I already told you, you should always remember that the most important property of a constructor is it has the same name as class and it never returns any value. Okay, now what I am going to do in this constructor, let me print something. So I'll write system.out.println method, and I am going to print here, hi, this is a constructor. Okay, so for compiling, we'll go to our main method. In my first class, here we have already defined the instance of this rectangle class and nothing else. Okay, now when we run the program, it prints, hi, this is a constructor. If we see this program, whenever you create an instance of a class, the first method which is called or which is initialized is the constructor of the class. And what this constructor will do? Constructor creates object and give default value to their instance variables. Means constructor assign default value to our instance variable. Length and width are here. So these are integers, their default value will be 0, 0. Means constructor assigned default values to the variables based on their data type. For example, if our variable data type is string, then default value will be null. But in our case, our instance variable data type is integer, so default values will be 0. Okay, so here if we see in this figure, R1 object points to the rectangle class that was just created with this statement, and the default values, length is 0, width is 0, has been given. Okay, so this is about the constructors without assigning any values to our instance variable. In this case, constructor only provide the default values to our instance variables. Now, what if I want to assign some values to our instance variables? For that, what we need to do? We know that constructors are used to initialize values in a class. So I am going to initialize some values here, like length is equal to 10 and width is equal to 20. Okay. Now to print the area of rectangle, we need to go in main class. Here I'll just put the instance of this rectangle class R1 dot area method, and this will return the multiply of 10 into 20, which we have initialized these values here. So it will print 200, right? Okay. Now let's talk about the memory details of exactly what happened when a constructor is being used. So here I can say R1 is the new rectangle, is the instance of rectangle class, and the right hand side of the statement is the part where constructor get called and all the statements within the constructor start running. Okay, so this is the memory location. Here is some number 9512 and R1 is actually containing this value 9512, means R1 is reference here. And what is this 9152? 9152 is the address where you can find the other details of the class like variable length and width that you can see over here. So in another words, the reference variable never contains the objects directly. What it contains is some number. Okay, so in this way you can declare and use constructor in Java. We will discuss about parameterized constructor and constructor overloading in my next video. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Please like, comment and subscribe this channel. Thank you.